theory, somebody could, clean it up and like edit it in some way, but I'm not going to do that either.
Okay.
So none of those things I listed before I pressed record. Or this, like editing and post, I'm not going to do any of that. This is episode 0, and the notion of like, you gotta make something with the intent of it being jerk-off material so you feel more free and uninhibited because it's your beta and nobody really cares. Yeah. If you could have that attitude throughout every single level of your career after that, right? Just maintain your episode 0 perspective. Because people don't. Like, as soon as something hits, there's like okay, I did 10 things. Which of the 5? I know I couldn't do all 10 perfect. Like, they liked 5 of them, but which 5? And so everybody like does a follow-up work, and they're like, "Guess wrong." Your follow-up to your successful work is now every one of the 5 things that they hated, and you can't do it right. You missed it because you don't know. And you can see this in so many films. The moment a production company or a filmmaker that was independent and vanguard and doing something interesting gets a little bit of money and the expectations are a lot higher, you make The Hobbit, like that's exactly like where you're gonna go. And you can't help it because you did something right, you just don't know what exactly it was. Right? I don't think there is any way to know, but I like that notion of like maintaining episode 0 in your mind the whole time. Like, no, each one of these is like, forget successes or failures. Each one of these is really just a jerk off. No matter how much you think, well, no, I'm in control. I've had 5 successes. I'm on a roll. It's like, no, you don't really know. Acceptance and everything that we might bucket into validation or success, it is such a crapshoot. You never know when it's going to happen, when it's going to go away. And so I wanted to make a show that just felt like, what does it feel like to have conversations with my friends? And so the whole first year of lineup is preceding any possible success or failure that these could have. So it doesn't fucking matter. Each one of them is just as much as an experiment as the first one. That's why I'm calling it episode 0, and every episode is still episode 0. Which, if I ever make like 52 of these, it'll be really embarrassing to be like, kind of like Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
But another Final Fantasy 15, yeah, sure, fuck it. It's never actually final.
No.
Episode 52 of episode 0.
Yeah.
But this is the actual episode 0 of episode 0, which is
cool. That's a pretty cool concept, and especially if you like to prepare anything, it's a good brand name for it.
I had all sorts of stuff prepared, and then I realized, like, when you make Skype full screen, you can't see any of your fucking notes. This is terrible.
I just started doing podcasts this year, and like at the beginning I was terrified because I was like, oh man, I had notes. I was like, I make sure I want to hit these bullet points. Every time, just fucking threw them away. It's like, you just get into a conversation, you get into a rift, and you just chat, and it becomes a much more organic feeling thing than you saying, all right, guys, what's the word of the day? And every time I say it, get up and clap. It's just like, no, it's like Pee-wee's Playhouse. And,
well, I did have a buzzer for that, like all sorts of, just general shock jock, paraphernalia. But when the kids get a hold of something, they run off with it, so you just never see it again. But, if you were going to say Twitter, I was going to buzz, writing community, buzz. And so just consider, like, that kind of stuff, verboten. We're not going to...
Try to shake it off.
Yeah.
Try to shake it off. Try to get clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took notes as well. It was the... basic topics and WTF topics, and I don't know if we'll touch on any of that.
I did absolutely no preparation, so
well, that's good.
You guys want to do?
Sorry, the first and only question, to you, and this is not prepared, so take it how you like it. But how do you know, right? I think people think about this when they're going to go to their first marriage counselor. They think about this when they're scrolling through the Netflix queue, or they start a new job, or they start something, and 15 minutes in, or whatever, some initial period, you're like, is this hard? And it's going to be worth it at the end. Like, I need to overcome this. It's going to get better. Or is this just shitty? And I have to cut my loss. I have to. And you see a lot of it. People talk about, like, well, I didn't finish these books because I just knew. It's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
But maybe something happened afterwards with something you didn't like, and it was worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody does kind of a quick mental calculus on how do you know, without like really examining it. So Chad, I want to know, like, how do you know you're gonna do something? You're gonna maybe start writing on a new topic, or a new book, a new work, or you're gonna start watching something. Just generally, tell me, like, how do you find your inner values to say, hard but worth it, or hard and shitty, it's gonna be terrible, a waste of my time?
Yeah, I don't look at especially the projects I do and the writing and stuff. I don't really look at it through the lens of, is this going to be something that's going to make everybody happy? I look at it through the lens of, does it make me happy? Is it a topic that I want to explore? Is it something that's on my mind? If it's a Netflix video, or something will catch me. And it's hard to say. It's almost like a cosmic, and it sounds lame to say, but it's like a cosmic intuition where you're just like, that's the one I want to watch, or I feel like I'm on the right track, or right or wrong, I think if you listen to your intuition in a lot of ways, I think you'll be led on the right path for the most part. It's when you start.
What the hell is that? Okay, now what is the right path? What does that mean? Well,
the right path as far as
Yeah.
To me, it's a feeling thing. Honestly, for me, I feel it. It feels right. I don't know how else to describe it besides I know when I'm on, and I'm on. It's a weird thing, and maybe I'm not on, but from my point of view, I feel like I'm on, so I go. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it seems like you got a little defensive. I guess it's hard. It's really hard to articulate those things.
It is.
I'm guilty of retconning my own experience with it. I think there's a lot of pressure to say that wasn't a wasted experience. I learned a lot in it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I really hated it.
Yeah.
I learned something about myself, and
yeah.
And I think there's part of it that's true, but I think we're also allowed to say, no.
No, I think so.
I followed my gut, and that was a terrible, terrible decision.
Yep.
Oh
yeah. There's the after effect where that comes in, right?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Success or loss, you could attribute it to any kind of those decision making you were choosing of to follow this or not. But really, if it ends well, great. It was a great gut. But if it ends poorly, well, that was just a whatever.
Well, I think everyone's had that situation where you work on a project and you go to bed thinking, oh man, I fucking nailed it. And then you wake up the next day and you look at it again, something just happened, something switched, the paradigm shifted. And you're like, no, that's not good. Or, and like you said, maybe, I wasted a lot of time doing that. I mean, self-publishing the first book was a huge learning curve where I fucking made every mistake in the book, all along the way. And yeah, there was a lot of learning curves on that. But there were a lot of stupid mistakes too that I was pretty pissed off that I made it during that time. So, there's something to be said for.
Okay, give us one. What's an embarrassing mistake you made?
Well, one is Well, I handed the draft over to the editor before I was done even writing it.
So why was that a mistake exactly? Go ahead.
Yeah, because she spent a lot of time editing it, and then I pretty much just rewrote it all anyway by the next revision, and then I did it again on the next revision, and so I learned that my own creative process is a very messy one, and I should not hand anything over to anybody until I'm through having my birth, and I did that. Pretty bad this run around, but I'd never been through the process before, so learning, yes. wasted a lot of fucking time. Yes. And the editor's time too. So, you know.
The old cliche is true, though. Writing is rewriting, and I think that multiple drafts are handed back and forth between writers and editors, and even if it changes drastically, I don't think time was wasted, and I think it grew.
Oh, I don't think so either, because forcing myself to go through the same story so many times only strengthened the story. You know, I got to the point where I was able to kill all my darlings, and I was able to, you know, make the other ones, you know, beautiful, you know. It was I have such a weird fucking messy creative process. I couldn't even describe it. I was on another podcast when someone's like, so tell us how, you know, what's your creative process? And I'm like, I have no process. I just need to apparently get it out, and I need to get it out the way it needs to be out, and then I need to hand it off to people. You know, it's such a weird thing.
Do you find the other choices you have to make in your life as similarly as messy? I mean, if this is how you make decisions on the thing that you love, like really the most outside of, you know, your family. Yeah. Is this just how you make decisions?
Yeah, I am a very piss poor decision maker. Like I you know, I can have all the Trello boards in the world. I can have great plans, and that's another thing that I had to stop doing. To be honest, I had to stop trying to create this magical process for myself, and I actually was only able to be successful and finish what I wanted to do when I just walked away from all process and just did what I had to do to get the story out. And so yeah, I am a horrible decision maker. I'm not the guy you want to ask, you know, red pill or blue pill, because I don't fucking know. And it's just one of those things where I don't know how you get any better at becoming, you know, a good decision maker, because I've never been one. You know, I just feel my way through life, and I just somehow am still here.
I think you've done it right.
Yeah. It's a journey.
All right, Justin, your formalist question here. What's good?
What's good?
Yeah, how do you know when something's good?
Oh. The only time I'm ever inspired is when I get an idea, and this is something that Chad talked about. It has to survive the 24-hour test. I have to be able to sleep on it and think it's still cool the next day.
Like a band's name. Is this because you're both musicians? Is this a carryover from like making band names?
It actually is. I you know, produced a good bit of music in my time too, and I felt the same way about mixing music. If it still sounded cool the next day, then I was on to something. If it suddenly sucked, then I just burnt my ears out the previous day on it, and I had to be done. So
there's no rhyme or reason to it, you know?
Yeah. So if it can survive the 24-hour test, then I know it's time to put in the work of drafting and hating myself and drafting.
I love drafting.
Well, that's how you know if your work is good. So how do you know if like something else is good?
I feel that I don't know, that there's usually something that speaks to me in a way that almost makes me feel altered, so to speak. If the writing is really good, or if I really connect with something to some capacity, I have this emotional response, and it's not always straightforward. It can just be like almost like I'm high, if that's as simple. If it's a simple way to put it, but you know, if it makes me feel something, or even just a good line that makes me go, oh man, I have to write that down. So something stands out and makes me feel something.
Yeah, you know, just to piggyback off of that, you know, I think, you know, for me, I always have to be really careful, because I am a very subtle plagiarist, and I don't mean to be, but it's like when I get really moved by something, or I get really, whether it's a book I read or whatever, then all of a sudden I'm writing that same thing. Or if it's a movie I like, you know, I'm thinking about those type of scenes in my head all the time. And, you know, it requires me sometimes to put myself away from all of that stuff, just to make sure that I don't absorb it like a sponge and regurgitate it back out again. You know, it's weird.
That's why I had to stop writing to music with a vocalist.
Yeah, I can't do either. Yeah, I used to be all about having freaking metal blasting while I was writing, but now I'm like, has to be instrumental, has to be ambient, because I just can't hear. I can't hear words.
Yep.
You agree on that? You both do that.
Yeah, yeah. I like. I'm one of those fanboys. Trent Reznor movie soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, pretty much film instrumental stuff and classical music and anything without a singer.
Yeah, dark wave, synth.
Yeah.
Just those sludge beats.
So yeah, but like saying something that moves you, that's not enough. Like I need to know like what are the qualities of something that would move you? Like how do you know that something's good? Like so you've talked about some albums, you've talked about some books, you've talked about how you look at your own work. And almost inevitably you're kind of saying something moves me. Now like I want to know like what are the things that move you? Like what is it that you think is good? What is it that moves you, I guess, is kind of like that next layer down. Like if it's a chain reaction, you know, something happened and then feels a thing. What is that? What's behind that something? What are those things?
What a simple bullshit answer. My apologies.
Yeah.
Man.
So you're both just being real evasive. I just want to get to the secondary emotions.
Yeah.
You know, your primary emotions are great, really cool, but I want to know that next layer down.
So I very much gravitate towards tragedy. You know, regardless of what else is going on genre-wise, I like a sad ending. There's something very human in not obtaining catharsis, because I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
But when tragedy connects with me and resonates with me, and that I can relate to that, and I don't know. I think that ability to stir empathy sometimes makes me get there, so to speak. You know, like there was one novel that moved me to tears, and it doesn't happen all the time, but Peter DeVries' Blood of the Lamb is a comedy about a man whose young daughter dies of cancer, and you know it's coming. It's coming, and every step of the way you expect it to happen. And even still, when I got to the moment where she died, I put the book down and I wept. And it was before I was a father, so how can I connect to that? There's still something about, I don't know, human loss that drives me to feel. I tried to be an apathetic person for a very long time for a great number of reasons. So now I seek out literature that penetrates that. So there's a little bit of, hopefully not bullshit, vulnerable honesty.
Yeah, for sure. You know, sometimes I find I don't know. So I took this film course once where we were talking about sexuality in cinema, and we were talking about pornography and talking about different lenses of feminism to digest it and analyze it. And in a big disclosure, the professor said, we're going to show it and analyze it. We're not watching it for its original intended, purposes, but some would say that even when you have a image in a print book or article, decomposing that, analyzing it, you're still reproducing the image, you're still reproducing the harm. So sometimes, and I'm a firm believer in content warnings for this, that like sometimes I don't really need to relive the harm as a viewer, but then there's other times when through the proxy of this layer of media, either a written work or a visual work or auditory work or whatever, puppet theater, whatever it is, that proxy lets me relive it from a safety zone, and I'm not re-traumatized and I'm not re-triggered, but I can actually observe it, as a mediated experience, and it's more positive. So I don't know. I once went on a very, very strange double date. My father and irrelevant, but we were going to go to the cinema, and we had chosen some sort of action flick, and within, I don't know, the first 15 minutes, his date was like, no, I have to leave immediately, because she was from war-torn Bosnia, and you don't really need to see this. Like, lived it, good. Don't take me to this. And we just cinema hopped over to whatever lighthearted fare was available. And so, among lit folks, there's like this big tendency of like, literature should challenge you. It's like, well, slow down, dude. Like, some people have been through some shit and they really don't ever need to go back. And I'm somewhere on that. And depending on the day, certainly my youth was spent finding transgressive, the most difficult,
angriest,
beyond punk rock extremity in cinema and literature. Like, absolutely. Oh, they're gonna eat glass, shit, and penis torture. Perfect, And then somewhere it became like, well, wait, the dog dies. I'm fucking not gonna watch that. So it just kind of swings that. So I don't know.
And that's fine. Seeking it out for just simple, lighthearted entertainment is totally part of the game too. I mean, you should read a wide spectrum of material, and
Yeah, I was a huge resistor of content warnings and trigger warnings until I wrote Ghost River, and I'd met so many people that have gone through experiences of sexual assault or other things, and Ghost River is a fucking smorgasbord of darkness. But it's I just couldn't, in good faith. I really wrangled with it, and I was like, I do not like. I came to the discussion saying I don't want one. I think it's not weak isn't the right word, but spoilers, or I'm letting people know what they're going to see, and I don't want to do that. But then I started like getting into talking to people and seeing the trauma that remains from certain things that I've never experienced, although I'm writing very viciously about. And I just couldn't, in good faith, not have one. I just, I woke up in the middle of it. I was actually, the night before I was going to publish Ghost River on KDP, I woke up in a sweat and I was like, I need to go add an advisory. I can't do it. I just got to do it because I don't want to hurt anybody that I consider a friend or even a stranger out there that will read this book because they want to support me or whatnot. And then I, put them in a bad place, which is not the intention. The intention of the book is, of course, to titillate and provoke, but it's not meant to harm, right? So it was one of those things, man, where I had a big epiphany this year around that because I just couldn't, and I finally felt the weight of the responsibility that the artist has to kind of have sometimes. And people chewed me out and they say, why don't you do that? It's such a bitch move or whatever. And it's like, no, I just don't feel comfortable enough to invite anybody into an experience like Ghost River without letting them know that you're going to see some shit. So, Micah brings that up, and I was like, man, that is such a telling experience now with content warnings and what are entertainment experiences, because I do think that that's kind of the future, at least of us as creators. We have to create more immersive experiences to compete with things like video games, where you can jump into a pre-designed world for you and you're just going. We're creating an environment where we are tapping into a human being's imagination, and inside of that imagination are a lot of great memories and a lot of shit memories. And you don't necessarily want to have that all coming out unless that person is a willing participant in experiencing that. So just a little side track there, but That was
No. Let's do this part. We're like almost at the 30 minutes. So like about 10 to 15 is like somebody's enjoying something.
Yeah.
About 0 to 2 minutes is, oh, you held my interest. At the 30-minute mark, we're pretty much clear to say whatever. So I'd like to plug your books. Okay, you both published books this year, right?
Yeah.
We did.
How is that going? Chad, that was your first. Justin, not your first.
That was my fourth.
Your fourth.
Yeah.
That's
How'd
awesome.
it go this year?
I'm sorry?
How'd it go?
Better than my previous efforts in terms of units moved. Gotten more feedback, and people seem to really like it. So.
Okay, so what is it?
Oh, forgive me. At Flowers with Frost is my novel about a family who has a child, and that child claims to be the reincarnation of a murder victim. They don't really take the kid seriously until she leads the way to a shallow grave and the accused. And from there, things spiral out of control, because the accused is also the leader of a religious cult.
Would you finish it?
I finished the initial draft at the end of 2018. Spent most of 2019 editing it back and forth, and then after a little jumping around with some indie publishers, I landed with a small startup. They just happened to start up in the year that pandemic slowed them down. So it was fun year to start a business.
Who?
They're called Immerser. They're actually just personal friends of mine, so just kind of hopped on with them. And
how did you know? So that's a couple years of revision. Too. That's not a small stuff. How'd you know you were done?
I never really know that I'm done until I'm pulling the trigger, I guess, because with the initial publisher, we had a draft that was set to be done, and then something happened where that whole thing fell through, and something happened in real life that made me go, hey, I want to change a little piece of the ending here to offer closure where I initially wanted to leave you with ambiguity. And that was a really personal, strange thing. So I suddenly had an opportunity to add that, and then we did another round of edits, and then it was done. So I don't really know. It's kind of like mixing a piece of music in the recording studio. There just comes a point where you've polished it as much as you're going to, and now you're just torturing yourself. So there comes a point where you release it, and some people are going to like it, and some people are going to not like it, and it's gonna happen the way it plays out.
What do you do? I mean, what's your press, publish or whatever, send? What's your kind of wind down? You just say, just pretend it didn't happen, or do you what do you do? Post publish. There's almost always are you gonna check? Are you gonna hype? Or are you gonna just forget it?
I mean, I started
Do you feel elated, or do you feel just depressed?
Man, I'm always wanting to. If I have something else lined up, I just want to work on the next thing, and I don't really want to worry about marketing or pushing a product or anything. I just want to.
Well, it's not a product. It's your book.
It is.
Product, content. It's your work. It's either your work or it's your book.
Sure.
Call it your manuscript if you want, whatever. But I don't. Product is for mutants of a different kind.
It's like Coke Zero.
We don't do that.
I that.
Well, how are you feeling? I mean, at this point, so what was that?
Yeah,
4 months ago?
it came out in June, very end of June, so we're about the 6-month mark.
6 months.
I feel that it's my best piece to date, so I feel good about that.
Awesome.
I've gotten better feedback on it than my others, you know. Even though there are people who know me, they've told me that I really like this one over the others, and I don't know. I do feel good about it in that regard. It feels like I did.
Do you talk about it? Do you talk about it much, Justin, online? I'm sorry, I was curious, but I never see Justin like doing a lot of like horn blowing or tooting his own horn or buy my books. This is the first time I've heard he's wrote 4. That's awesome.
I probably throw out a link and a little, hey, check out the book, maybe about once a week. I don't know.
You're pretty low key on there, yeah.
I kind of drove it hard when it first came out and spent a little bit on advertising and all of that, but after the initial hype, I kind of just let it go out to sea. So
yeah, I can definitely get behind that. I'm kind of a firm believer that your work, when you put it out there, is like a seed, right? And a lot of people, especially in the indie writing community, have really false expectations that you're going to publish your first book and all of a sudden Spielberg is going to be calling you the next day and they're going to be sealing the deal on your rights and you're going to be, having writer retreats every weekend. And, it just doesn't work that way. I think, when you plant your books out there in the world, they grow with time, right? And the more that you add and the more you
yeah, and in 120 years, I swear, right?
Yeah.
So hold on. So 4 books, are they all novels, Justin?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I have 2 short stories in a 5th book that's an anthology of murder mysteries, but it's just two small pieces. So I have work out in 5 available books, but 4 novels.
All right. Well, where are we supposed to buy them? What's your key link?
Um,
Do you like sending people to Amazon? Do you like sending where do you send people when they want to buy your book?
I typically send them to Amazon. I'm in.
Oh, you dirty pervert.
I know. I'm in,
Okay.
in Kindle Unlimited, even though, so I'm there. I am there.
Yeah.
Well, we'll include those as a link when I post this thing, and God bless. I'm gonna read your latest first and work my way back, but I've been dying to read it. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I've already read a bit of your beast. You're actually immediately preceding him. So he's had 4. And look, he's doing good.
Yeah.
He's doing great. Clean cut kid over here.
Yeah.
You're first. How you doing?
My first book, yeah. Writing this book was an absolute nightmare. I won't even lie. I started out setting to write another book. I had a whole other book. I spent months and months planning this other book. And again, as I've learned, I shouldn't plan. I should just do. And I started writing this other book, and all of a sudden, all these scenes and characters and places started coming out in the same book. And after a while, I realized I have a Siamese twin here. I have 2 books that are coming out. I'm not an outliner. I outline very directionally, but not specifically. I kind of know where I want to go, but I'm a pantser at heart. I like just to get in there and let my imagination go. And so as I was doing that, I'm like, this makes no sense. What's this desert? What's this, what's happening here? And I had 2 books. So after a surgery of immense proportion, I had a bunch of pieces left on the cutting room floor, and I had to look at all of those. And I think I've told Micah before, it's like this story came to me like shards of broken glass, man. Like I just could not. I would try to pick it up and put it together and just cut my hands even more. So it took a while to get all those pieces, glue them together, and Ghost River was born. It's I call it kind of a unique horror experience. It's very immersive. It's very in your face. It doesn't let you go. It is kind of where I put all of my 2020 anxiety and my anger with what was going on in the world, my anger at toxic masculinity, my anger at just a lot of things, and being in a world with no heroes, but still having to, live like one. And that's kind of how Ghost River came. It's my, for lack of a better term, downward spiral, I guess. I know it's kind of cliche to say, but it's.
But you did rent the Manson house, and you
Yes.
did, yeah. So
that's where I'm at. Come on, I bought it with all my royalties. But it was a book that I wanted to write an anti-book, but still have it be a book that people would recognize. So there's heroes' journeys and stuff like that, but they're not clear. There's really no heroes. There's no special people, but yet they're all kind of special in their own weird way. It's one of those things where it's a challenging book on a lot of different levels. And honestly, I thought people would absolutely hate it. I was so terrified. So to answer like your question, Mike, I asked you about, well, how did you feel after you launched it? For me, I just hid for like 3 weeks, waiting for those first reviews to come in, because I'm like, I am going to get massacred. I was like, but I personally loved the work, but I was like, Chad, you went too far.
So what'd you do? So what was so Dustin, he just starts writing. It's like, okay, the end. Okay, next page, in the beginning, and he just starts writing the next.
No.
What do you do?
No,
what do you do to hide? You just sat in your gym and masturbated all day? I mean, like, what happened?
Yes. No, I 3 times a day, actually. I'm a very virile young man. But what I did was I got very busy into marketing. I'm a guy that can't sit still. I would say like I'm a gunslinger. I'm very like on to the next thing. I need to be, I kind of learned or forgot how to relax over the years a little bit, which I'm trying to figure out how to do again. And I'm hoping 2021 will be a better year for that. I just can't relax. I just pace, I'm always feeling like there's something I have to be doing to make sure this thing's a success. So that's what I did. I did the most unhealthiest things you could possibly do after I released that book, because I didn't know what else to do, and I didn't have the tools or the experience to have lived through it. Now that I have a little bit more perspective in that environment, but I was just very grateful and happy that when the reviews finally started coming in, that they were good, because I was absolutely terrified. I was like, what a risky, challenging venture to put out there as a debut. I know Mike is in the process of reading it, and Justin, if you decide to read it at some point, you'll see what we're talking about. It's just very it's very in your face, but I wanted it to be. I wanted people to to leave with the experience of what I think true horror is, and that's unrelenting darkness. So,
So you what was the time period between you saying pencils down, I'm done, and press publish?
Yeah, so I had that interesting experience with the editor. So I had a hard deadline. I mean, I did the pre-sale, and I did the pre-sale on purpose, because I know myself, and I'm like, if I don't give myself a deadline, I will just keep tinkering with this bitch for as long as I can keep tinkering. And
I mean, if you let those 6 or 7 people down, that'd be really terrible. The pressure's really on when you're pre-sale.
Well, exactly. But for me, the pre-sale wasn't so much about selling as the fact that, well, if I don't hit this, then Amazon's going to ban me and bad things will happen. I learned with the stick, not with the carrot. You don't want to give me the carrot, you got to give me the stick. So, that's kind of what I did in terms of that. So,
would you still be working on it if you hadn't done that?
Probably.
But that's okay. Maybe there's another chapter, or maybe there's another revision, another pass. We're all checking our audio because Chad, it doesn't sound like you're talking at all.
Yeah. I can't hear you either.
Yeah. Yep. Hi. Nope. But I can lip read though. I mean, apparently, because I could. That was really clear. Did you get that too?
I missed it.
Hmm. Oh man, I don't know. This is gonna be one of the shittiest times to release a book or any kind of thing. You know, like you made the perfect car.
You hear me now?
I'm gonna get into streaming media. It's like no, you're not. This is just, you can't really launch anything in this.
Can you guys hear me?
Pretty complicated.
Yeah, but you're like super quiet and weird. Like you're coming from far away.
Far away.
I think your audio input changed to like that weird quasi mic that lives on a near a motherboard. It's not like a real mic. Old man Chad and his technology.
Bummer.
I think I released some stuff this year, but I don't even remember, man. Like it was just a blur. I just with all my friends who just.
I thought the Terra book looked like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but the release dates we had finished. My partner and I, Lindsay Falk, we had finished really everything a couple weeks before the date we had set, like to auto publish through Ingram Spark and the Game Crafter for the deck, and in that intervening time, I had a lot of personal stuff I had to deal with, so I had to punch off the internet and just missed my own launch. You know,
That's right. That's right.
I wasn't around for it, so I don't know. I think had COVID not happened, everybody selling books would be a little bit different about it, right? Like there would have been like in-person releases, or there's friends of ours, maybe even you. I mean, people who sell well at circuits. You go to book fairs, you do local events. Your library on its local authors. You're at tables at Ren Fair to Comic Cons to the other cons. There's stuff that happens, and without that infrastructure. It's just really hard.
Yeah. I've had a couple just direct ships from my own house to people I've have personal relationships with, but beyond that, it's been the machine moving them. But it's been a rough year. And with just day job life pressures, I've actually really struggled this year just to write in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm still able to carve out some time, but I'm waking up about 5 a.m. every day, and after the day job, I jump straight into dad mode, and by the kiddo's asleep, I'm just worthless in any intellectual capacity. So,
mm-hmm. Right.
It just falls by the wayside. I hear the age-old preaching of, if you love it, you'll make time for it. But if I lose any more sleep, I'm going to, not do myself any favors.
How long have you been writing, like, contiguously, like, with like less than like a 6-month gap between stuff?
Like less than a 6-month gap between releases?
No, before writing.
Oh, before writing again? I mean, my main issue is that grind that we talked about, finishing it. I can usually jump to the next project fairly quickly, but then something happens along the way where I trip up and it takes me that much longer to get back on board. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, let me ask again. So, like, some people, when they say, oh, how long have you been a writer? And people will say, oh, I've been writing since I was 15 or I was 12. But, like, well, you weren't really writing the whole time, right? Like, you took an interest in it when you were young. maybe you wrote a bit in college, like, you know, have you been writing like your last 4 books? They seem to take about 2 years to a year. Have you been writing steadily for like the last 6 years, just like really writing project to project?
Yeah, it's been about a couple of calendar years between releases. So, 2013, 2015, 2018, 2020. So it's my average time frame between books is about a couple of years from start to finish, draft to publication. But
have you taken like any kind of long time, like 2 years off of writing, 3 years off of writing, 10 years off of writing?
I definitely took a couple years off of writing while I was finishing up my bachelor degree at Ohio State. All of the writing I could manage in that time frame was academic. So the creative writing thing fell by the wayside, and I just knew I'm focusing on this right now in terms of literary pursuit or whatever. And I'll get back to my creative projects when I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did. As soon as I was done, I got started on the next thing.
You know, I see people online and wherever else announcing like what they're going to do. I think I'm going to quit writing. Well, maybe, you know, maybe you'll quit writing. Well, really what you're doing is stopping writing, and maybe you'll write again in 10 years or 15 years. Like, I don't know. People view it as this. I think we get conditioned. Once you're hanging out with other people that are releasing, it starts to feel like releasing is synonymous with producing. And if you're not in a release type of writing environment, selling matters. You know, maybe it's all about moving products, units of product, or maybe wherever it is, like where you fall in that spectrum of, you know, employed for television or film, you're part of the Writers Guild, or you're independently published or whatever. I think there's always some sort of way to categorize. I'm a writer because I am actively making something. And, you know, I think it's perfectly okay without any kind of statement about one's intention to, like,
right.
You know,
people
long time.
live in this all or nothing mindset where you are or you are not. And it's kind of a conversation I had with a friend just last week where I was lamenting about the day job, and because we had once fancied ourselves quality musicians, and I made some sort of remark like, we should have been musicians, man, and his response was, well, we are musicians. It was just all about that perspective, and it's like, okay, I might be down and out for X amount of time, but it doesn't mean I'm no longer X if I need to have X as part of my identity, right, to the point where I'm letting the void or the internet know I'm quitting.
Right. Chad, can you just reboot your dang audio and redial in, because we gotta hear you for the end of it.
Yeah, you're still out, buddy.
I just kicked him out.
Oh.
He'll join if he can, if he sorts out this audio issue.
Yeah, I'm feeling. He's gonna be mad. Very mad. What are you doing these days? I'm actually. I was, as much as it can be weird to, connect with someone online, I was actually quite saddened in the couple of days after I realized you were no longer there. And it is weird because I never, for growing up online, I'm not the type to have made real long-term connections with people on the other side of the screen, and it's very refreshing to have found you and some of the people that you associate with that I've gravitated towards as well, and there's a real community there that I see that just, I don't know, it seems organic, and I like that.
Oh,
I don't know.
No, I feel the same. I mean, I really value my friendships that I've made through social media this last 4 years. I didn't really have like a lot of internet growing up or anything, so I didn't like have that raised online AOL kind of thing. Though sometimes there's some bulletin board systems, whatever, but it wasn't like a long-term thing. But when I joined these 4 years ago, I think I really needed some friends. And I made some friends, like real friends, because I didn't have extremely online internet savvy. I didn't know how to be guarded or how to be like, how, not just a slang issue, but like culturally, I just didn't have like a grasp on like, well, what the fuck are you supposed to do on the internet, and how do you talk to these people? Like I don't even play online gaming, so like I'm here like, oh yeah, 13-year-olds will really say some shit to you. Like I just didn't know. So no, I really made a lot of friends on that, and my time off of Twitter, it had nothing to do with Twitter or books or anything. I just had some stuff in my life to deal with, just like anybody else does. And
understandable.
Can you guys hear me? I'm on my phone.
Yeah, we can hear you. Goofball, what happened?
No idea, man. The mic, I just tested all the mic settings. I saw the little gauge working when I was talking, and who knows? I even rebooted Skype twice, so I'm on my phone.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, your book has been out for a little bit.
Yep.
How do you feel?
Good. I'm having fun. I'm having fun with it. I am definitely got over my anxiety. Took a few weeks to get out there. Honestly, adding the content trigger warning and stuff like that helped me get by with it, and I'm enjoying
like anxiety over like difficult material and graphic violence, and thinking people are gonna be, yeah. I think everybody like goes through this. They'll have me on the news. They're gonna crucify me. I can't believe they will be outraged by the things I write, and then you realize nobody fucking cares about you, and no one reads it. So, yeah.
I did have one. I've had one reviewer that turned it down. And this is weird. Like again, people are triggered by different things, and there's in the first chapter there's a pregnancy scene that she just could not get. It brought up some body dysphoria issues and all kinds of stuff, and she was very apologetic about it. And I was like, "It's okay, it's okay." I don't want you to read anything that's gonna scar you or whatever. But it's funny how it works, because the things that people get offended by are not what you can predict. All the things that I thought would get me, I was expecting to have like an army of Christians, crying. I was expecting a lot of things.
You can't read, Chad. You got, you're fine.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of people that read, so it's okay. It's turned out all right, but it's one of those things where it's surprising that way, how people interpret your work and what does bother them and what doesn't. And what bothers me about the story doesn't bother them about the story. It's a very it's a strange experience, but as an artist, I guess, like we talked about, you just kind of have to let it go. It is what it is.
Next one.
What's that?
You want the next title? Are you writing something new?
Yeah. So my process is weird. I don't, like we talked about, 24-hour period of incubation and some other things, but I don't typically jump into another one until I'm really grabbed by something. And I have a few things now that have been germinating for a few days that I'm kind of getting excited to open up Scrivener again and lay out some ideas and some files and seeing if it's going to grow. But I'm not I did Ghost River in about 8 months, but I'm like we talked about. I've come to the term that I'm never gonna be a 20 book a person year. I'm a 20 books a year person author. I'm not gonna have the series of whatever that's 40 volumes long. I'm good for one or two a year, maybe. But I want to go for stuff that really captures the attention of readers. I want to go for big ideas and try to do big things and experiment in different ways with stuff.
But you want to do one novel length release a year, 1 to 2.
1 to 2.
Okay, Dustin, you do a novel every year and a half?
Yeah, about every 2 years, publication to publication.
Now you got another one going?
Yeah, this one's going to be more of a collection, 2 or 3 novella-length stories and 1 feature package. So
why that change?
Because of the length, the word length or page length. I'm not one to release just an ebook. I want to be able to offer a paperback as well, and I do have one that's relatively short, but I still feel like these stories are even shorter. The first one's less than 30,000 words instead of 50 plus what have you. So I figure bundling a nice bundle would be just a nice thing to put out. It's just kind of where I'm at right now.
Oh man, 25 to 35,000 words. That is you can tell a damn fine story right there.
Yeah.
And then 5,000 words.
Once you hit, real novel, people can lose what they had, and some stuff can be just too short, not enough to develop for my taste what I want. But that mark right there, 25 to 35. It's still got the punch of a short story, but it's got the development of a novel. It's just it's a bitchin' form.
Yeah, I see a lot of people publishing those now because I think from a time ROI perspective, having a novella that you can sell for the same amount as a 500-page word.
I don't think it's as I think it's more about the impact and like what do we need? Like what's the palette of readers looking for?
Mm-hmm.
There's ebbs and flows in tastes. We know that when we're talking about genre, but there's more than that. There's like greater or lesser emotional intensity. You can look at the pop fiction and music of the 80s. Now, I don't mean like the 80s, like when we think about 80s music of like new wave, dark wave, goth, punk, industrial. I'm talking like what was mainstream in the 80s. The writing is fucking gross. And the music is, banal to disgusting, even if there's a couple earworms in it, But I think right now we're starting to see kind of a gravitation, at least where there's a niche market of people that want, to me, a short story is a spike. You get like a singular emotional drive, and it can peak, and there's nothing. You don't really have to do the whole world building. You don't have to do the rest. It's just a bump of coke, right? and novels could be like LSD. I'm going to be 12 hours on this thing. It's going to have all this ride. I'm going to have an up. And okay, I think we're coming down now, right? It's like a cycle, but novellas can really get both of that. It's really awesome.
I think too that like Justin mentioned, I think right now we're going through a very TikTok type of environment where attention spans are very, very tight.
Oh, sure.
I always tell people to, authors, you got to give them something short and sweet up front, man, because if you don't hook them on the candy quickly, you can run. I mean, Ghost River is a huge book, but Micah, you've seen my chapters are long, but my scenes are like a page or two. Very, very digestible, quick. Quick hits. Not a lot of like a long exposition on things, because I think
your scenes are super tight.
Yeah, I think that they're very. I think readers don't have a lot, and I say readers, and what I'm really talking about is myself, because I don't have
a lot of patience anymore to read 15 pages of description about a scene. You know, I'm like, let's get to the action. Let's get to the
Oh my God, it's you. You're watching Pornhub, and you're that first thing. You're like, just there's a marker. Just skip. You know, minute 23, 3 minutes 52. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you know, exactly.
See, that first part's the only part I watch. You know, I like setup.
You got a romance, Micah.
Yeah, right. I see. I'm like Justin. We're romantics. I have to connect emotionally. So like, I don't really like. I can recognize technical acumen in all sorts of crafting,
Right.
but if I can't find the heart of it and find it pretty quick, I'm just like, this is dishonest. It's dishonest. It's well crafted, but it's dishonest. You know, I've said it before. Like, I want the basement mixtape more than I want a studio album. It's not that it's formulaic in the studio. It's just that it's so controlled, and not everybody knows how to let it breathe in there. And I need the emotional intensity, and it doesn't have to be pathetic. You know, like where you just like transpose like getting dramatic and having gravity and tragedy to like bathos is like when it's unintendedly hilarious because you're now in Nick Cave territory, you know, or Cage territory, you know, like it's nonsense.
Yeah.
I need something though, and
it drives me crazy when a lot of people are talking online, or writers or whatever, and they're like, I hate the advice you need to grab a reader within the first couple of pages. And I'm like, no, that's good advice. That's good advice. You know, and I crafted, you know, an entire first chapter knowing that I was going to release it for free, and I wanted it to be a huge hook, you know, and that's the kind of thing that, you know, when people are like, oh, that's crazy giving away a chapter for free. I'm like, no.
For your readers, right? I mean, I would read the first 100 pages describing shoe styles, right? I mean, like, I'm okay with exposition in such a major way because I like it. Like, oh, you're going to talk about the textile industry of this world building you're doing? Cool.
Yeah. Like, yeah, if you're talking like fantasy and stuff, I guess that, you know, that's good. But I guess in the modern world where we all kind of know what these things are, you know, do we need to describe them, you know, to the nth degree? But again, that's just a subjective matter.
Well, we're gonna have to talk more about demographics.
Yeah.
Because another time, because I don't think it's about genre. I think audiences have been using genre in the same way, and publishers in the same way as we say there's two political systems in the United States. Oh, why? Ideas only fall in these two buckets? No. And genres don't either. They're supposed to serve us, the reader, who's going to walk into a store and say, based on who I've liked in the past, who will I like today? But I think matchmaking has become more sophisticated. And I don't think our genres, as we've established them, actually reflect anything other than like a really gross, meaning like this large part of the content at a glance, but it's not really what the book is about. Yeah. I hate everything pit and pitch on the internet. I don't think that the manner in which we've traditionally bucketed these things really reflect or really inform someone what is it about, any more than saying Democrat, Republican. They're arbitrary categories at this point.
I remember I was in a creative writing class in college, and it was one of the few times when I was failing out again that I was like, I had a creative writing teacher I absolutely hated. He was a pompous asshole, and he berated this girl in class because she wrote a fiction story about an old west setting with vampires, and you know, this old crusty dude was like, oh, you can't do that, and you know, people need to know if this is a horror or is it an old western, and there's a certain compact you have with your readers. And I looked at this guy like he was crazy, because I'm like, you know, how do you push an envelope in anything if you always are redacted to box A, box B, box C, box D? One of the favorite compliments I get from people that have read Ghost River and enjoyed it are like, I don't like horror, but I enjoyed this. It was like there's fantasy in it, there's magic, there's all kinds of different things, and that's intentional because there's beautiful mechanisms in all genres that we can pull into to create new creatures, and if we don't.
That's what keeps genres entertaining right now, are the people who can circumvent expectation. You go into a genre with an expectation of X, Y, and Z will happen. So the people who can deviate from that without completely going off the rails, that's the envelope. That's what's still entertaining about vampires or whatever I'm being drawn to this week, So I'm with you.
Yeah, I have a friend.
He's in the pod. I'm all about fan service. Give me, a narrative irony. Like I just tell me the same story again. I still like it.
Hey, those classics get rewritten for a reason. It keeps us warm at night. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that works for Hollywood, and she recommends books and stuff to Blumhouse Pictures and some other things. And she's like, yeah, the buyers in Hollywood are just as bad as publishers are, because they're now in the process of buying all the vampire stories they can buy. Because vampires are coming around the bend, and then zombies are out, vampires are coming in, and it's a cyclical nature of genre recycling, which I'm okay with. But with those new old tropes, can we get some new ideas around those old tropes, right? We can buttons be pushed in ways, I love vampires, but let's tell me a story about a vampire that I've never heard, right? and that's kind of, and then a lot of people would be like, no, Chad, I want to have Anne Rice. I want to just have Anne Rice. And okay, I don't have something new.
All right, my friends, we're at the hour. This was fun.
It was, man. Yeah, I feel like we're just getting going now.
Well, that's the way I think you're supposed to do it, because if you don't stop when you're just getting going and getting good, you're going to get bad. Like that's inevitable.
Yeah, the whole Seinfeld rule, quit while you're on top.
Well, we're not remotely on top, any one of us, but this was really fun.
Yeah.
And thanks for doing this.
You guys are on top of it.
I think we're going to have to do this several times before we get people's attention. So,
anytime.
Yeah.
So you're still going to be on call as the regular interval, dance card.
And I'm here for you.
All right. Well, thank you much. Bye.
Had a lot of fun, guys.
All right, Justin. See you later, man.
Have a good night.